She parked my wheelchair under the harsh ER lights, tucked my Medicare card back into my purse, and said, "Figure it out yourself now." Then Ashley, my only daughter, turned on her heel and walked away while the automatic doors swallowed her. I sat there in my paper gown, IV still taped to my hand, staring at the red exit sign like it could answer me. A triage nurse froze mid-step, and a security guard actually craned his neck to make sure he'd heard right. Strangers whispered, the fluorescent hum felt louder, and for the first time in 66 years, I felt disposable. What happened next shocked everyone in that hospital, including me. If you're wondering how a PTA mom who packed turkey sandwiches and wrote lunchbox notes raised a daughter who could leave her in an ER, let me rewind. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 66, a retired school librarian from Ohio, and I still start my mornings with a drip coffee and the local NPR station murmuring in the kitchen. I live in the same split level where we carved pumpkins and taped paper snowflakes to the windows every December. I keep my husband John's flag from his Army funeral folded in a triangle on the mantle and his favorite Cleveland Guardians cap by the coat rack. Ashley was my firecracker. Honors classes, soccer practice, Girl Scout cookies stacked to the ceiling, and I never missed a game. Somewhere between college, her corporate job, and 2 beautiful kids, my girl's voice learned a new edge I didn't recognize. Most days I still try to show love the way my mother taught me, quiet and practical. I simmered chicken noodle soup with extra dill for Ashley's freezer, roll out cinnamon rolls for Saturday mornings, and label everything in neat block letters. I stitch quilts for church, prune the hydrangeas, and slip a 20 into Tyler's and Mia's backpacks for the school book fair. When Ashley calls, it's usually because the sitter canceled or a last-minute meeting popped up, and I say yes, of course, come by, I'll keep the fish sticks warm. I remember reading Charlotte's Web aloud to her under a blanket fort, the lamplight making a halo in her hair, and I still buy the same vanilla candles she loved at Target. But lately, my slow driving, my questions, even the way I count coupons seem to embarrass her, like frugality is a language she's forgotten. A week before the hospital, I slipped on the back steps carrying potting soil, and the ache in my hip bloomed like a bruise I couldn't rub away. Ashley insisted on taking me to urgent care, more out of scheduling than concern, I think, saying, "I can fit you in between my 11 a.m. and the client call." By the time we reached the ER, the waiting room was a blur of crying babies, coughing teenagers, and the smell of antiseptic and stale coffee. At registration, they asked about my supplemental plan, and Ashley rolled her eyes, grabbed my purse, and handled the forms like I was a toddler. When the nurse asked her to wait while they placed an IV, Ashley's jaw clicked, and 5 minutes later she wheeled me to the doors, smoothed her blazer, and delivered her line. She left me there under the humming lights, and that's when the social worker looked up. The security camera blinked red, and a chain reaction began that none of us saw coming. This is the story of how the girl I raised to say please and thank you tried to turn me into an inconvenience, and what that moment woke up in me. Of hospital forms, home truths, and a kind of love that stops apologizing when dignity is on the line. If you've ever been told to shrink, to be grateful for crumbs, or to make yourself easy to abandon, stay with me. Because family is a choice you make every day, and respect doesn't expire when you qualify for Medicare. Hit subscribe and tap the bell, because you're going to want to see how a paper gown, a security video, and one brave nurse turned everything around. And how the woman left in a wheelchair in an Ohio ER stood up, finally, and refused to sit back down. A nurse with a sunflower pin clipped to her badge stepped into my line of sight like a hand under my elbow. "Ms. Collins?" she said, voice soft but carrying. "I'm June. Can you hang tight a minute with me?" I nodded because the alternative was to cry, and I was already tired of being the woman who cried. June glanced at the automatic doors, then back at me. If sympathy had weight, it would be the warm kind you use for quilts in February. She pushed a stray strand of gray behind my ear in a way that made me think of my own mother fastening barrettes before Sunday school. "Let's get you out of the draft from those doors," she said, angling my chair away from the exit sign. The IV tugged, tape pulling at the paper of my skin, but she moved slow enough to ask the pain permission to follow. The triage nurse had unfrozen. The security guard, he had a shaved head and a high school state championship ring from the look of it, hovered, eyes darting, insult already tightening his jaw on my behalf. June caught his gaze and gave one small shake of her head, the universal sign for not yet, and then looked back to me. "Do you have someone else we can call?" she asked, and her tone made me think she already knew the answer, but wanted to give me the dignity of saying it. My neighbor Gloria, I said, because saying Ashley's name felt like a bruise. Or, I'm okay. I can manage for now. Of course you can, she said, like it was the truest thing in the room. We're going to take care of you while you're here. We'll get a social worker to sit down with you too. Behind her, the security camera's red light blinked a steady heartbeat over the doors that had swallowed my daughter. It felt like a witness. June pressed something warm into my palm. A pair of hospital socks, thick, with little grippy dots like candy buttons. Your heels get cold in these chairs, she said, and I'm going to get you a cup of coffee if your doc's okay with that. I smiled, even as my throat burned. NPR will be jealous, I said, because humor is a raft even when the water is shallow. June smiled back, relief twitching at the corners of her mouth like I had rescued us both. Another woman appeared 10 minutes later, in a cardigan that took the worst of the fluorescent light and softened it. Dara from Social Services, she said, pulling a chair to sit so our eyes were level. Her clipboard stayed at her side, closed. Can you tell me what just happened? I told her I fell. I told her the back steps have a dip where the rain sits, that I was careful but not careful enough with a bag of potting soil and an early spring stubbornness. I told her my daughter brought me here and said words the air still tasted like, even if I couldn't repeat them out loud yet without wanting to retch. And when I got to figure it out yourself now, Dara did what a good librarian does when a book cracks open on a secret. She didn't gasp. She didn't rush. She let the quiet be a container until it wasn't dangerous anymore. Okay, she said, nodding. It helps to hear you say it. It doesn't help me much hearing me say it, I said, and to my surprise, she laughed under her breath. Quick, like an acknowledgement. There are times when you need someone to laugh with you so you don't think you imagined it. We have policies for this, she said. Not policies like punishment, she added quickly when my shoulders went stiff. Policies that protect you and help us get you what you need. We're going to document what happened. The camera over there caught the interaction. She nodded toward the blinking red light I'd been staring at. And if you consent, we can include that in our report. We'll also make a referral to Adult Protective Services. But please know that doesn't mean anything is happening to you beyond support. Support, I repeated, testing the shape of the word. It had muscles in it if you looked close. Yes, that's fine. June came back with the coffee and the socks and an extra blanket that felt like it had been warmed by a dragon with excellent manners. Sugar? She asked, and I said yes, even though I usually drink it black. There are days when sweet feels medicinal. While June and Dara worked around me, my mind did what it does when the noise outside gets too loud. It rewound to quieter rooms and let the contrast teach me what I was looking at. It rewound to the first time Ashley called me Marge, instead of Mom, like she was testing how it felt on her adult teeth. She used it the way people in meetings say your name before they say the part that stings. Marge, we really need to talk about boundaries. Marge, your house is a hazard. Marge, it's time you joined the century and used automatic bill pay. It rewound to the afternoon. In November, I made green bean casserole with the crispy onions Ashley used to nibble like chips, and she arrived with a kale salad and a speech about saturated fat. We're teaching the kids to make better choices, she said in front of Tyler and Mia. Right, guys? And Mia, earnest and 8, nodded hard enough to make her headband bounce. Tyler, 10 and lanky as a baby colt, looked at the casserole like it had personally offended him. Sorry, Grandma, he said, and I felt embarrassed to be a pan. It rewound to the time she stared at my coupons like they were fossil remains. No one does this anymore, she said, thumbing the neat stack with mild disgust. It's so penny pincher. She said it like she was describing a disease she'd been vaccinated against. You know you can scan barcodes now, right? There are apps. You know I read to you every night under a blanket fort without an app, I wanted to say. You know your father's flag is folded by the mantle because I learned how to fold it from watching a funeral detail showcase dignity, like an art. But I did not say it. I smiled. I tucked the coupons into my envelope and thought, let her have the brand new world. I know how to survive in the old one. I thought of the calendar on my fridge with Grandparents' Day circled in blue ink and the time last year Ashley had said, in the kitchen with the NPR station murmuring quietly, we'll do Saturday brunch after. But quick, okay? Mia's got a party and Tyler has travel soccer. We're slammed. Slammed. When did schedules become people you had to serve? I'll take it from here, another nurse said, as June rolled me toward an exam bay. But June squeezed my hand first, just 2 fingers being brave. They took x-rays and asked me to rate my pain on a scale of 1 to 10, like pain is a thing you can keep on a leash. Someone with a name tag that said Dr. Valencia told me the hip bone was bruised, not broken. A mercy the shape of Ohio. No fracture, she said. But a bad contusion. You'll be sore. We can manage this with rest, ice, and medication. We'd like to keep you overnight if that's okay, just to monitor. Overnight. The word shot out little sparks of logistics. The hydrangeas. The soup I'd portioned and labeled for Ashley's freezer. The mail. The back door. Did I lock it? I always lock it. That's fine, I said, surprising myself, because home felt like a place I had to defend now, and I didn't feel strong enough to be a soldier yet. June helped me settle. The ER had ceiling panels with pictures of a summer sky, which I appreciated even if it felt like a trick. I sipped coffee and stared at my phone until the screen fell asleep twice, like it was tired of waiting for me to do something. I tried calling Ashley then, because there's a part of me that will always be the woman standing in the doorway at 11:45 p.m., checking the driveway for headlights. It went to voicemail. Her message chirped with efficiency. This is Ashley. If this is work, text me. If this is family, leave a message. If this is regarding PTO, use the team channel. I hung up. I tried again. I hated that this was the muscle memory we shared. I texted instead. Hey, I wanted to let you know the x-ray is okay. Bruise not break. Staying overnight. I love you. Please tell the kids grandma's okay. Put the fish sticks back in the freezer if you didn't already. I stared at the little gray delivered dot and told myself it meant something it doesn't. A different ding sounded. A chime I'd set for Gloria 3 phones ago. I hadn't even reached out yet. She must have been sitting with her tea and hearing the cross breeze of gossip that moves through a town without anyone getting up. Heard you're in the ER? The message said. Do you need me to come there or stay at your house and be the guard dog? I can do either. Also, I love you and I have fresh banana bread. I typed with my thumb like a teenager. In ER. Ashley left, staying overnight. If you could check the back door, I'd be grateful. And if you happen to see my binder, the green one labeled Important Papers, on the hall bookshelf, tell me I'm not losing my mind and it didn't walk away. 3 dots danced. I'll swing by your place now, she sent. You know I know where the spare key is, even if you once tried to give me a coded map like Nancy Drew. Text me anything else I should look for. I was about to reply when another message flashed across my screen from a name I knew better than my own. Ashley. I'm in a meeting. Please stop broadcasting drama. I know what I'm doing. My thumb hovered. Then I wrote, What is it you're doing, Ashley? I stared at the typing bubble that came and disappeared like a nervous fish. When the message arrived, it was surgical. Putting things in place for when this happens again. We can't keep doing crisis mode. It's not sustainable. At some point, you have to manage your own life. I should have let it sit like a sad sandwich and looked away. I should have saved my breath. I didn't. I typed, I have managed my life. Your life too, when you were knee-high and needed Halloween costumes and lunches and car rides to all the places you outgrew me. I typed and then deleted it, because I grew up in a house where you don't send something you can't say kindly. Instead, I wrote, Please don't change my locks while I'm in the hospital. The moment the message left my phone, panic barreled through me at the idea that I'd given shape to a thought she hadn't had yet, like saying be careful to someone on a ladder and watching their foot slip. No reply came. 40 minutes later, my phone lit with a text from Gloria. Back door locked, she wrote. Hydrangeas look thirsty, but they're survivors. Your important papers binder is not on the shelf. Did you move it? There's an empty space where the dust outlines it like a chalk body. Also weird. There's a realtor card stuck in your screen door. Keller and Stowe Realty. We have buyers ready. I took a photo. The picture made my stomach go cold. The glossy card smiled. A woman with bright teeth promising you could magically turn memory into equity. It wasn't proof of anything. Realtors flood mailboxes like the church bulletin. It wasn't proof. But I remembered the afternoon last month when Ashley had stood in my hallway with her phone displaying a map of comparable home sales. It's a seller's market, she'd said. We could get you into an easier condo and finally get rid of this place. It's a time capsule, Mom. She had said time capsule like curse and then softened it with, I mean, you did a great job keeping things quaint. That last word had been the pat on the head. The house. The split level with the creaky stairs John had promised to fix and then died too early for his promise to matter. The oak table with the little nick where Ashley had hammered a nail as a toddler because she wanted to help and I hadn't stopped her fast enough. The hallway where we measured her height with pencil marks until she left for college, and I kept measuring summer plants instead. The flag in the triangle on the mantel that he never got to fold himself. The mailbox that still had a small dent from the time Tyler's skateboard kissed it in July. The house wasn't just a box. It was my work. It was the sweat equity that doesn't move markets but anchors a human heart. If there was a symbol for everything that was still holding me together, it was that place and everything in it that had a story. June checked on me again and patted my foot, and I asked if she knew a good way to rinse humiliation out of an IV. She grinned and said, "You let it drip out into the saline, Ms. Collins. You just let it go." In the late afternoon, after Dara had filed her report, and I had napped the kind of nap that feels like you're being stitched back together by someone careful, my phone lit with Ashley again. A voicemail this time, because even in war, my daughter avoids live fire. I put the phone to my ear and braced. "Hey," her voice said, brisk over a murmur that sounded like an office kitchen where someone was washing a travel mug. "Look, I don't have time for a back and forth today. I'm sorry for how this morning looked, but you know I warned you. You can't keep putting everything on me and then making me the villain when I set limits. I had to get to work. You'll be fine. You're in a hospital. They have systems for this. I'm not your nurse, Mom. I have 2 kids, a job, and we can't keep rearranging our lives every time you refuse to plan ahead. Also, I talked to Maple Glen again, and they have a room. This is good, okay? It's safer. They handle medications. The house is too much. It's a hazard. I'll swing by tomorrow. Don't make this harder than it is. Maple Glen." The words landed, and out of the fog came a memory I'd pushed to the back with the Christmas ornaments. 2 weeks ago at my kitchen table with the NPR station murmuring Friday news, and Ashley opening my blue plastic coupon file. She hadn't been looking for something to save. She'd been looking for my driver's license and social security card, and then a leaflet she'd brought with pictures of smiling seniors playing cards under a pergola that looked like a restaurant patio. "It's just an option," she'd said, casual, like a coat rack. "It's not a nursing home. It's active adult living." "I am an active adult living," I'd said, and she'd rolled her eyes and told me not to be dramatic. "You fell last winter shoveling," she'd countered. "You almost set a towel on fire when the oven mitt brushed the coil." "Almost," I'd said, and then I didn't. But my arguments had sounded like paper wings when what she wanted was steel. A text from an unknown number chimed. "This is Rachel from Maple Glen. Ashley shared your contact. We'd love to schedule a tour. We offer a safe, vibrant community for seniors." I stared at the words until they blurred. Safe. Vibrant. I had been both. I wanted to be the one to decide where I did it. Another text. This one from Evan. Of course it was from Evan. He was Ashley's husband and has always been a decent man in the way polite men are decent. He is kind to waitstaff and tips well and remembers birthdays and vacuums the minivan on Saturdays. He is also a man who hates conflict more than he loves the truth when they're in the ring together. "Hey, Marge," his text read, friendlier than Ashley's by a mile. "Just want you to know we love you. Ash is under a lot of pressure at work. She's just trying to put structure in place so we're not lurching from thing to thing. Maple Glen looks like a great place. They even have a wood shop. Could be a fun new chapter, right?" Evan uses exclamation points like band-aids. I knew he meant well, because he always does, but in his sentences I could hear the soft hiss of a tire losing air. I typed back, "I will not be moved like furniture." He did not respond. He would show Ashley my text later in the kitchen with the granite island and say, "I tried," in a voice that wanted to be excused. "If I can make a suggestion," Dara said when she came back with paperwork. We had moved to a short-stay observation room where the lights were less aggressive, and there was a curtain you could pull if you needed to make your life a small square. I know it feels like everything is happening to you. One thing you can decide right now is who you want listed as your emergency contact and who you authorize us to talk to. That gives you a piece of the steering wheel. "Ashley," I said automatically, the way you still reach for a habit after you've decided to quit. "She's always been, but..." I swallowed. "Can I add someone else?" "You can choose anyone," she said. 2 people, 3. Whatever makes you feel supported. "Add my neighbor, Gloria Thompson," I said, reciting her number from memory, the way some people know old hymns. "She's retired. She has a backbone like the flagpole on the courthouse." I surprised myself with the next sentence. And take Ashley off for now. Dara didn't flinch. We can do that, she said. And if you change your mind, we can change it back. There is a quiet that grows at the edge of a decision that scares you. It feels like stepping off into deep water. But sometimes your body knows how to swim because your grandmother taught it to you in a lake when you were 8, and you haven't forgotten. Gloria arrived at the hospital an hour later with banana bread wrapped in a dish towel like a baby. She kissed my forehead, sat near enough to touch my foot, and did not say, "I told you so," even though she'd warned me months ago that Ashley's eyes were turning to the side like a horse spooked by something it can't see. "Well," she said instead after listening. That was a choice she made. "She thinks it's a kindness," I said, hearing the defense I'd tried on in my head like a cardigan that didn't fit. Or, "She thinks it's responsible. She's always had a planner even when she was 10. She used to schedule playdates like she was running a company." "Lots of things can be true at once," Gloria said, breaking off a piece of banana bread and handing it to me. "She can be organized and cruel on the same day. She can be tired and wrong. You can love her and not let her rearrange your heart's furniture." "She wants to sell the house," I said to the ceiling, because sometimes you ask the universe for courage by pretending you're not asking anyone at all. "She's been circling it like a vulture around a picnic." I didn't want to see it. "And I think she took my important papers." Gloria's mouth went tight, the way it does when she tries not to swear in front of me because I taught the 3rd grade Sunday school class for 18 years, and she never shook the habit of being gentle around me. "We'll look when you get home," she said. "We'll make a list of what's missing. We'll call the bank and put double verification on anything with your name. And we'll tell the realtor who put her shiny card in your door that if she comes within 10 feet of your porch without your invitation, I'll show her what a boundary looks like with a rake." I laughed, and then I cried, and neither thing made me weaker. Dara returned with a printed copy of my chart for me to review, because she said it's a good habit to know what other people think they know about you. She pointed to a section, Social History. "Is this accurate?" she asked, and then watched my face change. Under Support, it read, "Daughter reports minimal family involvement. Patient unable to manage medications. Patient unsafe to live alone." Under Plan, it read, "Daughter coordinating assisted living move. Home to be sold. Daughter not available for coordination. Request hospital discharge to Maple Glen." "I did not say that," I said. "I have a 7-day plastic pill box with big letters. I fill it every Sunday after church while I watch Jane Pauley. I handle my own medications." "I believe you," Dara said, calm. "We'll correct it so our team doesn't act on inaccurate information. That's why it's good you're reading this." She clicked a pen like she was ready to rewrite the weather. "Do you want to keep Maple Glen's number?" "I want to put it under a paperweight that says not yet," I said. Dara smiled and wrote, "Declines Maple Glen at this time" in neat print, and I wanted to kiss the hand that taught her penmanship. Then came the moment the ordinary day decided to stop pretending. It didn't arrive as a knock or a thunderclap. It arrived as a ping, the sound of an email sliding into my inbox with a subject line that might as well have been a scream. DocuSign. Listing agreement. 14 Crestview Lane. 14 Crestview was my address. I clicked with a hand that felt like it belonged to someone else. The email was addressed to McCollins 67 Plus Ashley Sogmail, with my real email CC'd beneath it. There was a little note at the top. "Ashley, as discussed, here's the listing agreement for your mom's property. We can go coming soon today and MLS on Friday once it's vacant. Our stager is available tomorrow to start. We'll drop a lockbox by. Let me know once the locksmith finishes so we can get the new keys. Meredith, Keller, and Stowe." June was in the doorway changing a bag on the IV pole. "Everything okay?" she asked, because my face must have gone white as the sheet. I held up my phone and she read without touching, because consent matters in the small ways too. "Do you recognize that name?" she asked. "Meredith?" I didn't. But 5 beats later, my phone chimed again with a message from Ashley. It wasn't to me. It was to a group thread I'd been accidentally included in, with names like Meredith Realtor, Stager, Finn, and Evan. The text read, "Keys acquired. Cleaner scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Mom is in the hospital overnight. If we move fast, we can have photos done before the weekend. Please stick to the plan. Her house is a hazard. We're doing her a favor. Also, please do not contact her directly. She gets confused when too many people call." The room tilted. "June," I said, because sometimes you say the name of the person in front of you just to tether yourself to a thing that is not lying. She put a hand on my shoulder, and I could have sworn I heard a click as something inside me slid into place. My phone buzzed again. Another voice message from Ashley. I pressed play because I wanted to be sure the knife I felt wasn't imagined. "Mom," Ashley said, and her voice was curved in a way I used to recognize when she wanted something. "Please don't make this adversarial. You always take everything so personally. This is logistics. It's numbers. It's math. The equity in that house could finally help us settle your debts and set you up somewhere with services. I can't keep being your safety net. It's not fair to us. You had a good run there. It's time. And if you try to block this, I will pursue guardianship. I don't want to, but I will. I need you to hear me. You don't get to derail our lives anymore. You are not my job. Figure out how to be grateful. I'll see you tomorrow with the papers." It was not just the words. It was the tone, the calm of someone who has the paperwork and thinks that makes them right. Gloria didn't wait for me to translate. She took my phone gently, her eyes flaring in a way I recognized from a barn cat we once rescued when a dog got too close to her kittens. "Put that back on record," she said to June. "Put that in whatever report you're writing. She can't do this." Dara arrived at exactly that moment because fate loves an audience. I replayed the voicemail and showed her the email, my fingers steady now in a way that surprised me. "This is," she began, and then she breathed. "Okay, this is very clear. You have the right to decline any plan you don't want. We're going to document this. We're going to make sure your discharge plan is what you choose. And if someone shows up here trying to get you to sign anything under pressure, we will escort them out." "Security," she said, nodding at the guard from earlier who stayed close as if my dignity were a person he could wrestle for in a hallway. "This is your call." I thought of John's flag folded just so. I thought of the back steps where I fell and the dirt that had spilled like a confession across the concrete, and how I had brushed it into a neat pile because messes are easier to deal with when they look like an intentional mountain. I thought of the pencil marks on the pantry door, Tyler's and Mia's heights next to Ashley's old ones, a family tree in graphite. I thought of the day after John's funeral when Ashley had been 24 and slept on our couch with her face pressed into his guardian's cap because it still smelled like him, and how I had made eggs and she ate one bite and then pushed the plate away like grief had made her full. If you've never felt the exact second you stop apologizing for taking up the space your life requires, I can tell you this. It feels like standing up on a bruise and realizing you can't. It hurts like hope. "June," I said, "can you help me sit up? I'm done talking to my daughter lying down." She slid an arm behind me and did what nurses do with the ease of women who have carried the weight of the world in small rooms. She made it look like I did the work myself. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, hospital socks gripping the tile. My hip protested and then acquiesced like a toddler 1 graham cracker past nap time. "Call her back," Gloria said, fierce at my side. "Say it plain." I hit Ashley's name. It went to voicemail again, which felt like a blessing. It let me speak into a container that couldn't interrupt. "Ashley," I said, and my voice surprised me because it didn't shake. "It's your mother. This is me making things clear. I am safe. The hospital knows the truth. You do not have my permission to sell my house. You do not have my permission to change my locks. I have removed you as my contact here for the time being. I love you. I will always love you. And I will not choose a life that makes me small for your convenience. If you show up with papers uninvited, security will meet you. If you continue to push this, we will have this conversation through people who protect elders for a living. This is not a game of gotcha in a kitchen. Respect is not conditional on how quickly I text you back or how neatly I stand where you put me. You have a key to my house. You may not use it. Bring it to me. And please tell Tyler and Mia that their grandmother's hip hurts and her heart is brave." I hung up and breathed through the tiny tremor that came after like a train passing, and the silence rushing back so fast it makes your ears pop. June squeezed my shoulder. Dara nodded like I'd recited a creed. The security guard, whose name tag said Tony, actually grinned and said, "That was solid, ma'am." Sometimes life hands you a plot twist that feels like everything speeding up toward a cliff. Sometimes it hands you a plank at the very edge and says, "Start building your bridge here." In that moment, under hospital lights and against the hum of machines and the sound of someone crying down the hall for a reason that had nothing to do with me, I picked up a plank. Night fell, and the ER took on the hush of a church between services, quieter, but no less occupied. Gloria went home to check my house again and promised to sleep with her phone under her pillow like a teenager waiting for gossip. June clocked out and squeezed my hand, and another nurse took over with the same kindness but a different rhythm. Dara filed reports and sent emails and wrote things down in ways that added up to a defense I didn't know how to build on my own. At 9:30 p.m., my phone vibrated with an unknown number. I answered because courage makes you answer things. "Is this Margaret Collins?" a woman asked. "This is Meredith from Keller & Stowe. I just wanted to clarify a couple details on the listing." "You have nothing to clarify with me," I said, my words crisp like fall. "Except this. If you set one toe on my porch without me calling you first, you will not like what happens next. You are acting on information from a person who does not have legal authority to act for me. Do not contact me again." I hung up before she could swivel. It felt like slicing a rope. 2 minutes later, a text from Ashley lit my screen like a flare. It contained exactly 2 sentences. "You are being ridiculous. You're lucky I'm trying to make your mess make sense." We were past the part of the movie where people reconcile in a hallway. We had crossed into the scene where someone says something so small it is nuclear. "You're a mess," she had said. "Be grateful I want to clean you up." I pressed my lips together and thought of chicken noodle soup simmering slow and cinnamon rolls rising on Saturdays, of quilts I stitched with little secret pieces of John's old flannel shirts tucked into corners where only I knew to look, of a flag folded perfectly on a mantle because a man I loved had worn it to mean something bigger than him. Respect doesn't expire when you qualify for Medicare. It also doesn't vanish because your child earns enough to buy a second car. At 10:15, with the hospital's curtain drawn half, I made a decision that felt like drawing a circle around my heart and writing mine. I opened my messages, found Evan, and typed, "We will speak tomorrow at noon. At my house. Bring my key. If Ashley arrives with a locksmith, he will leave with his tools untouched. Tell her to come as my daughter, or not at all." He responded quickly. "Okay," he wrote. "We'll be there." And then he sent another. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry it got like this." "For what it's worth," I typed, and then stopped. Because I am done teaching adults how to act like adults with the soft pedagogy I used to use with children. "See you tomorrow," I wrote. Then I turned my phone face down on the tray table and let the ceiling's faux sky be enough. What happened next, the next day, would shock everyone in that hospital, when the security footage made its way beyond our city and into the great echo chamber that can, at its best, be a megaphone for justice. A brave nurse would stand between me and a system that prefers you agreeable, and a video of a daughter walking away from the woman who taught her to say please would turn into a chorus from strangers who know a line when they see one crossed. But that night in the ER, the great reveal came in the ordinary text of a realtor's email and the humiliating voice of a daughter talking about me like a problem to be solved. The blow landed not as a slap, but as a plan. Ashley had taken the binder that held the contours of my life and handed pieces of it to a parade of professionals who, to her, made sense in a spreadsheet. Her motivation sat there too, not dressed in love, but in numbers, equity, closing dates, stagers, and lockboxes, plus something meaner, older, hard to name. A resentment that I hadn't transformed myself into the kind of mother who was easy to leave behind. When sleep finally found me, it did not arrive alone. It brought a memory with it of Ashley at 6, hair in a crooked ponytail, running toward me at the fall festival with her prize ribbon flapping, her mouth forming the word mama like it was new every time. I thought of how I had scooped her up then without wondering if lifting her was sustainable. I thought of how love had been the plan even when there was no plan. And I slept. I woke to the soft clatter of a tray and the stale coffee smell that always reminds me of early flights. The ceiling sky was still blue, even if the real one outside the narrow window had gone gray, the kind of overcast that makes the whole day feel undecided. A new nurse with a bun tight as a sermon introduced herself as Kiana and took my vitals with the kind of competence that lets you pretend you're not being measured. My hip throbbed low and steady. My dignity didn't hurt at all, which felt like a miracle you can only explain by adding up a dozen small mercies. Dara slipped in like she was part of the machinery of mourning. "How are you?" she asked, and what she meant I heard was, "Are you still the woman who called last night and named the things?" "I am," I said. The words sat up straight when I said them. "Good," she said, opening her folder. "I've updated your chart. I have a copy of the email from the realtor saved, and we've attached a note that any discharge plan is at your direction only. I spoke with APS, They've opened a case, and an investigator will follow up with you, likely today or tomorrow. In the meantime, we'll discharge you mid-morning if you feel up to it. Gloria is on her way. She said she's bringing reinforcements. Reinforcements? My brain flashed on a troop of casseroles and a folding chair brigade. She said a locksmith she trusts and her nephew to carry things, Dara said, smiling. She means business. Gloria usually does, I said, and the quiet that followed was full of more than the beep and hum. It had a plan in it. I called my bank before 8. The hold music a strange comfort because it means you're waiting for help and not for doom. I asked them to put a note on my accounts. No changes, no address updates, no withdrawals beyond what I set up, without my voice on the line. I changed the passcode I'd had since John was alive because shared history is lovely until it becomes an access point for invasion. I asked the utility company to add a PIN. I called Maple Glen and asked for Rachel, and when she got on the line with that sing-song concierge tone, I used my Sunday school teacher voice that sounds kind but commands attention. Please remove my number, I said. Please do not call me again. If my daughter contacts you about me, inform her gently that I said no, and make a note that I declined. There is no consent. Do not schedule a tour. Do not show up at my house. Of course, Mrs. Collins, she said, slipping into smooth apology. Ms. E, I corrected without heat. And thank you. Kiana brought me a cane with a rubber foot that looked like it meant business. This will help, she said. Use it like you're old and wise, not like you're stubborn. I laughed, and then I cried because the difference finally felt clear. By 10:15, Gloria was a whirlwind in practical shoes. She had a canvas bag over her shoulder and a man behind her with a tool belt, who I recognized from 3 neighborhood barbecues as her nephew, Chris. He waved at me with the shy charm of someone whose hands know how to fix things. Locksmith, he said, tapping the bag. We're going to make your doors tell the truth again. June stuck her head in, off shift and on purpose. She wore jeans and a sweatshirt with a college logo from a decade she didn't attend, and she carried a thermos that probably could have caffeinated a small town. I know I'm not on, she said, but I wanted to see you stand up. I've been practicing, I said. Kiana gave me a cane that thinks it's my boss. Let me be the union, June said, winking when Kiana rolled her eyes fondly. She looked at Gloria and Chris and somehow knew who they were without name tags. There is a way certain people get encoded on you when you need them. We'll walk you out together, she said. We'll go slow. Dara did the paperwork. She handed me a folder with copies of everything. The note in my chart, the APS intake number, a little card with the name of a legal clinic that helps seniors who need free advice. If you want to call them, she said, they can draw up a letter to that realtor making it clear she is to cease contact. And if you decide to put an actual attorney between you and anyone who tries to talk over you, they can refer you. I will call, I said, surprising myself because drama used to make me queasy, and now it felt like fuel. I want a paper that says no. Tony, the security guard, walked us to the door. Want me to stand at your porch a while? He asked, half joking, half not. He flexed his hand like he could catch a locksmith wrench midair. Just knowing you exist helps, I said. But come by for banana bread sometime. Compensation for services rendered. He laughed. Deal. The day had one of those winds that make flags on porches talk. We pulled up in front of my house, and there it was, the place that had raised us. The hydrangeas were indeed thirsty but defiant, green like memory. The mailbox's small dent looked downright heroic. There was a neon green sticky on my screen door that said, "Cleaner rescheduled 11:30 a.m." With a smiley face I wanted to wipe off. Gloria plucked it with 2 fingers like you remove a tick. The front lock had a shiny new silver box hanging from the knob like jewelry on a child. Meredith's gift, Gloria said, her mouth thin. Chris? He knelt, examined it, then looked at me. Permission, Ms. Collins? Remove it and set it on the porch in plain sight, I said. We'll let their camera see us returning their property. He grinned. Yes, ma'am. He popped it like a stubborn peanut. It clattered onto the concrete. He placed it near the steps. Gentleness, a kind of contempt. No locks changed here yet, he said, peering. Keys still match. Good, I said. And then I slid mine in and turned it, feeling a satisfaction I wish was given more respect. This is mine. The smell of lemon cleaner hit us in the entry. There were little blue painter tapes dotting my walls like measles, each with small, neat words. Scuff, patch, remove hooks, declutter mantle. On the dining room table, my grandmother's runner had been rolled and set aside with a pink note that said, "Pack." "Bold," Gloria said. She walked through the living room like a general surveying a battlefield. There was a tidy stack of my framed photos. Ashley's wedding, Tyler as a baby with pudding on his cheeks, Mia in a tutu, with a note. "Family items. Store or donate." I could feel the heat rise up my neck as if the house itself had flushed. June ran a tissue over a smudge like she was erasing insult. "They staged an invasion," she said. I went to the mantel like a mother goes to a crib. The flag was still there, triangle neat, blue as reminder. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "If that had been moved," I said, voice flat with the threat of what I'd do. "We'd have called the 6 o'clock news," Gloria said, "and then we'd have called the 11. The important papers binder spot on the hall shelf glared back, a rectangle of absence outlined in dust. It felt indecent, like someone had undressed something private. "She took it," I said, as much to the house as to my friends. "We'll make a new one," Gloria said. "Stronger." "First locks," Chris said. He moved with purpose, the soft click and scrape as reassuring as a lullaby. He changed the front, the back, the side door off the kitchen. He handed me a new set of keys that winked a dull brass. "Old ones are trash," he said. "Put those in a jar and plant something on top." I laughed. I do love a literal fresh start. At 11:24, a black SUV I recognized like you recognized someone else's perfume even 3 rooms away pulled to the curb. The window tint swallowed faces, but then the driver's door opened and Evan unfolded himself, friendly and miserable. He waved with a tentative hope that made me ache for him and also made me tired. Ashley's door opened slow, deliberate, a performance. She got out with her tote, the leather one I'd helped pick, by saying, "This one will last. You'll have it when Tyler is in high school," the way mothers think in decades. Meredith emerged from the back, heels too high for my sidewalk, all efficiency and bracelets. A man in a tool vest I presumed was the cleaner trotted behind carrying a plastic tote of spray bottles like holy water. Another man lugged a collapsible ladder. The cavalry of people who help you not see what you're doing. My Ring camera, Chris had installed it in 10 minutes like he was buttoning a shirt, lit a small halo around my porch. Gloria's phone was already in her hand at her hip, the lens a quiet threat. They trooped up like they owned the air between steps. Ashley's lips arranged themselves into what she saves for PTO. "Sorry you're inconvenient. Here's the plan anyway." "Mom," she said. "Good. You're home. We can make this easier if you just—" "Do not finish that sentence," I said, and my hand on the cane felt like punctuation. "You do not get to put just in front of the life I built." Evan lifted his hand. "We're here to talk," he said. "We want to find, a middle ground." "Middle ground is where both sides bring heavy things and set them down," Gloria said too brightly. "I see only one side dragging, and it's not mine." Meredith's smile had colleagues in every suburban mall. "Ms. Collins," she said. "I'm Meredith with Keller and Stowe. We're here to—" "You received a message from me last night," I said. "You ignored it by showing up. That's your first mistake. Your second will be speaking again." She blinked and measured me as if I were square footage. "I understand this is emotional. These transitions often are. But your daughter has your best interests at heart, and timing in this market is—" "Meredith," June said, stepping to my shoulder so beautifully the nurse part of her felt like armor. "Read the room." Ashley exhaled through her nose the way she did at 14 when curfews were suggestions. "Mom," she said, all iced coffee and slides. "I told you yesterday, the plan is in motion. We can get top dollar if we move fast. Maple Glen has a unit. It's cute. You will have friends. This house is dangerous, it's too much, and frankly it smells old." She wrinkled her nose. "We'll steam the carpets." "This house smells like lemon cleaner and a bad idea," I said, which is to say you. "Mom!" she snapped. Then, recovering, turned to Evan like he was on a panel with her, and she needed the supportive nod. He supplied it. "We cannot keep fixing your chaos," she continued. "I have a notary coming in 10 minutes. We're going to sign some papers. A durable power of attorney so I can manage the sale, the listing agreement you got by email, and a directive that you accept placement at Maple Glen. If you sign now, we can avoid a fight. If you don't, I will file for guardianship. I printed the forms. You will lose more control if we go that route. This is your best option." She reached into her tote and pulled a neat manila folder, the tab labeled Mom Actions in her handwriting. Tidy, bossy. There it was, the indecent proposal dressed in khaki. She set the folder down on my table, the table with the nick from a toddler's helpful hammer, and pushed it toward me like a contract for a job I hadn't applied for. It's numbers, she said, not feelings. I felt my body do that thing it has learned. It breathed before it spoke. I put my hand on the folder and slid it back. No, I said, and the word made the walls exhale too. No, Ashley, I am not signing anything that hands you my teeth while I'm still chewing. Her eyebrows went up like theater curtains. This is ridiculous, she said to the room more than to me. She's being ridiculous. She gave Meredith an apology shrug, and Evan an imploring look, and even the cleaner an embarrassed half smile, the way you do when your toddler throws a tantrum in a grocery store and you're hoping everyone understands there's a parent in charge. Evan, I said, because his name has always been a bridge. You know me. In the marrow of things, you know I am not unsafe in my own home. You know the difference between effort and avoidance. You know what it looks like when kindness is weaponized. Stand with me. He swallowed. I watched his good intentions bump against his fear of open conflict and lose, and I felt something tender go quiet in me. Marge, he began, palms up. I know you feel blindsided, but Ash is trying to put structure around something that's gotten hard. The falls, I have a bruised hip and a plastic pillbox, I said. Not a time bomb. If you can't say that out loud in your own kitchen, you don't get to pretend you're my ally in mine. He flinched like I'd thrown water. I'm trying, he said. And then his eyes slid to Ashley, as if permission was a country you have to pass through to arrive at the truth. He didn't get his stamp. See? Ashley said, turning triumph into evidence. She glanced at the cleaner, the ladder man, Meredith's bracelets. Everybody's here. We're doing it. We're not making this combative. Sign, and we can go to lunch. I'm not your errand, I said. And this is combative because you brought an army to a boundary. She opened the folder and smoothed the papers like a mother smoothing a tantrum out of fabric. Here's the listing agreement. Meredith already pre-filled most of it. Here's a limited POA so I can sign for you if you're, resting or not up for it. She said the phrase like she was quoting me in some petty court. And here, she said, tapping the top sheet with an acrylic nail, is a caregiver designation that says I have authority to place you in Maple Glen now if your physician agrees it's safer. Dr. Valencia will sign. She knows the situation. This is standard. You sign, I sign, we're done. I looked at June, whose face had gone stormless and hard. Doctor, Valencia won't be signing anything that takes decisions from you, she said, sharp. And that standard is fiction. That's not how this works. Your mother's capacity is intact, and even if it weren't, a guardianship would go through a court, not your tote. Ashley rolled her eyes. Stay in your lane, she said to June, and the disrespect of that lodged in the room like a wasp. June stepped closer to me, shoulders squared. My lane is women who are being steamrolled in hallways. Consider me the guardrail. A car pulled up fast, and a woman with a small suitcase popped out, brisk, her badge on a lanyard swinging, Notary Public. She had a tote with a stamp that looked like it could make anything legal if it hovered over it long enough. Are we ready? The notary chirped, stepping in with the tempo of someone whose time is money. I can witness and notarize. Photo ID. Her eyes slid over me, taking inventory. The only thing that will be witnessed in this room today, Gloria said, is a mother not capitulating. Ashley's volume didn't rise. She got quieter, which has always been her trick. Mom, she said, this is a kindness. You're making it ugly. You're making it yours, I said. There's a difference. She moved around the table and reached for the mantle. For the flag. My body beat her there. Bruised hip be damned. I put my hand over the glass of the case. No, I said again, because sometimes the most powerful prayer is the same word said twice. You don't get to wrap yourself in his dignity to cover your coercion. It's staging, she said, snatching her hand back, stung. Too much on mantles is cluttered. We need neutral. Buyers need to imagine themselves here. Then maybe don't show them a house that doesn't belong to you, I said. I found the words I hadn't dared to put together in the right order, the ones that made the snap inside me sound like a clean break. Stop pretending this is for me when it is for you. You are chasing an image of yourself as the daughter who did the responsible thing, who saved the day with paperwork and a latte. You are embarrassed by my coupons and my casseroles and my calendar with kids' soccer in my pen. You want my house because you think it will wash you of where you came from and buy you a version of adulthood that none of us ever promised you. You are not my caretaker. You are not my warden. You are not my boss. I am not an unpaid project on your Trello board. You are my daughter. That comes with love you didn't earn and obligations you don't get to edit. Her cheeks went blotchy, an old tell I'd forgotten because mothers forgive even faces. You don't see yourself, she said, voice low. You're a crisis I am done putting my life around. You think dignity is a casserole and a flag and a stubbornness you mistake for independence. I have 2 kids, a mortgage, and a job. I do not have room for your schedule shaped like an emergency. So sign. Or I will make it so you don't get a choice. I laughed then, not because it was funny, but because my whole body remembered that laughter is a lever you can use when someone is trying to pin you to a table. You have always liked ultimatums, I said. When you were 8, it was, let me wear the sparkly shoes to school or I'm never eating dinner again. When you were 14, it was, let me go to Jenna's party or I'm moving in with Dad's ghost. You grew up and your objects got more expensive, but the trick stayed the same. Threaten me with leaving so you can stay feeling righteous when you walk away. I reached across the table, took the pen out of the notary's tidy case, and clicked it without breaking eye contact, the sound like a nail-driven flush. I am not signing. If you bring this up again without respect, I will call the police and report attempted financial exploitation, because that is what this is. The cleaner, God bless him, let out a low, whoa, he probably couldn't contain, the way people slide to the edge of their seat when truth finally does what it's supposed to do and makes a sound. Ashley's jaw worked. She reached for her phone. We're done then, she said. We do this the hard way. Guardianship, emergency motion, a capacity assessment, whatever it takes. And the locks have been changed, Chris said, voice steady. By me, with permission. Here's a number if the locksmith you hired wants to argue. He held out a card. She ignored it like he'd offered her a tissue in the rain. Evan, I said again, the last olive branch trembling but offered. If you cannot stand with me, at least don't stand in front of me. He looked at the floor, then at Ashley, then at me. I can't go against her, he said, to his credit not pretending otherwise. I'm sorry. Something in me stopped waiting to be chosen and put on its coat. Okay, I said. It came out almost like a thank you, because clarity is a gift, however sharp. Meredith gathered her bracelets like a retreat. We'll reschedule, she said to Ashley, already stepping backward. We can move a listing by next week if we... You won't be moving any listing that includes this address, I said, calm as a prayer. You are hereby informed to cease and desist any action and any contact regarding my property. If you want it in writing, my new attorney can send it. If you want to test me, please do, and bring a camera. She colored because people who count on women making nice count on never being called out in their own vocabulary. We'll be in touch, she said, couching it in the safe phrases. You won't, Gloria said cheerfully. Or you'll be in touch with a sheriff. The notary snapped her stamp case shut. Well, she said, professional neutrality fraying at the edges. Call me when you're ready. She left first, portfolio like a shield. Ashley didn't move toward the door. She put both hands on the back of a chair and leaned like she thought gravity worked differently for her. What's your plan then? She asked, voice quiet in that way that used to make me rush in to fill the silence. What happens when you fall again and there's no one to scoop you? I get up, I said. Or I call Gloria. Or I call a ride. Or I lie on the floor and sing until the pain decides it's bored. There are 100 ways to live a life that isn't you standing over me with a to-do list. And one more thing. Bring me my binder. Her eyes flared. I don't have your binder. If you say that in a room with God in it, you should duck, Gloria said mildly. Because we all know lightning when we smell it. Ashley made a strangled sound, half laugh, half fury. You too, she said, sweeping us as if we were conspirators, have always been codependent in your little widowhood club. It's unhealthy. Actually, June said, it's community. You might want to try it when you're done trying to turn your mother into a cautionary tale you can boss. The ring of the doorbell cut the scene like a commercial break. For one ridiculous second, I thought it would be Tyler and Mia, faces pressed to the glass, and my heart surged toward the idea of their earnestness saving us. It was two men in blue, badges glinting, their faces set to neutral compassion. Behind them, a woman I didn't know with a folder and a government lanyard. APS faster than I'd expected, which sometimes happens when a tired social worker pushes a case to the top of a stack because she knows what it means for a mother to be brave on a Tuesday. "Ms. Collins?" one officer said, stepping in when I waved him through. "We got a call from the hospital about possible attempted unlawful entry and a potential elder exploitation situation. We're just here to make sure everyone is where they're supposed to be." "Welcome to where I'm supposed to be," I said and gestured to my living room like a hostess. Ashley straightened, face recast in innocence. "Officers," she said. "I'm her daughter. We're handling family business. There's no exploitation. I'm trying to keep my mother safe." She's confused. Confused is a word we don't use when a person is making complete sense, the APS woman said, a little smile peeking. She looked at me. "Ms. Collins, I'm Anita. You have the right to decide where you live and who touches your door. Do you want these individuals to leave?" "Yes," I said, surprised that the yes felt like an act of love and not banishment. "I'd like my daughter to leave my house. Evan, too, and the realtor. And the cleaner, poor soul. Unless he wants a glass of water and a cookie for his trouble, in which case he can take it on the sidewalk." The cleaner looked apocalyptic with relief. "I'll go," he said, backing away. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I just go where my boss tells me." "I know," I said. "You're not the villain here. You're the commentary." The officers did something with their shoulders that telegraphed both authority and the wish they didn't have to use it. "Ma'am," one said to Ashley, "you've been asked to leave. We're going to honor that. If you refuse, this becomes a trespass issue, and no one wants cuffs in a living room." Ashley blinked hard and looked at Evan, waiting for him to conjure a middle that no longer existed. He put a hand on her arm, gentle. "Let's go," he said. And for a breath, I liked him again because clean exits are a kindness, too. She let herself be guided toward the door, but turned at the threshold like a TV lawyer with a last line. "You're making a mistake," she said. "Don't call me when you fall." "I won't," I said. "I'll call Gloria, or June, or a cab. And also, I don't fall for free anymore." She flinched. Something tightened around her eyes. Not entirely anger. The part of me that built bridge after bridge wanted to toss her a rope. The part of me that has spent years maintaining a structure she kept setting on fire held still. She walked out. Meredith scuttled behind, muttering about her schedule. The cleaner vanished like smoke. Evan paused with one foot on the porch. "We'll be in touch," he said. "No," I said. "You'll bring my key at 4. Alone." He nodded, then seemed to remember another script. "We love you," he said, a desperate liturgy. "I know," I said, which was both a mercy and a refusal. When the door shut, the house made a sound I can't explain, except to say it was relief. The air shifted. The lemon smell receded under the scent of coffee and something like pride. I sat. My hips sang. June put a hand on my back. Warm. Gloria exhaled a war whoop that probably scandalized the ancestors. Chris stood in the doorway holding a coil of old lock guts like a trophy. Anita from APS took notes with a pen that didn't miss. "Okay," she said. "Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to open a formal investigation so there's a record. That protects you if any more professionals try to circumvent your wishes under the guise of helping. I'm going to call Maple Glen and inform them you declined placement and that any further action without your explicit consent will be considered part of this investigation. And I'm going to give you my card with my cell. If anyone shows up here with papers again today, call me. Call the police, ask them to leave. You do not have to be polite. Heels that high don't help you walk in the law." "I like you," Gloria said. "Everyone likes Anita after she's prevented a kidnapping of someone's agency," June said. And Anita's laugh sounded like it knew it was true. We took down the blue painter tape labels together, each little sticky a lie undone. We set the staged piles back where they belonged. I put the photos on the mantle around the flag, not cluttered but present, evidence of a life with faces in it. Chris hung a new chain lock high because he said it made him feel better, and I let him because sometimes you let people love you through small hardware. At 1:15, I called the legal clinic. A woman named Patrice listened to the whole story, making those affirmative little sounds that keep you talking. We can draft a letter to the realtor today, she said. We can also prepare a letter to your daughter informing her that any further attempts to make financial decisions for you without your consent will be referred to law enforcement. If she has your binder, we will include a demand for return. We'll send by email and certified mail. Do you draw up papers that say, "Do not parent your parent?" I asked. Patrice laughed in the way people who fight monsters do. Not because it's funny, but because the armor needs oil. I'll call it something else when I file it, she said. But yes. June made sandwiches from my fridge like she'd always been the kind of friend who knows where the mustard hides. Gloria picked the crust off hers absent-mindedly and handed it to me because old habits are love languages. We ate at my table, the Nick shining like a star. At 3:55, a car door thudded. Evan stood on the porch like a penitent. He held out my key on a ring with a novelty fob Tyler had given me that says "World's Okayest Grandma." His eyes were wet. "She's angry," he said, voice small. "But she'll cool off." "She can be angry," I said. "Temperatures aren't laws." I took the key. "Evan," I added, because I want the men in my life to know when they're allowed to be better. Next time a woman tells you she's being steamrolled, plant your feet. It'll feel like betrayal to someone. Make sure it's not yourself. He nodded, shame and relief like strange dance partners in his face. "Can I tell the kids anything?" "Tell them their grandmother is stubborn and safe," I said. "Tell them I love them in a way that never makes them smaller." After he left, the house found its late afternoon hush. The hydrangeas got their water. Anita's letter pinged my email with the satisfying subject line, "Cease and desist, Collins residence." Patrice's draft followed with fierce paragraphs that made me feel like I had a parade behind me. June took her thermos and kissed my cheek and told me to text if I needed someone to clap when I climbed the stairs. Gloria washed the breakfast plate I'd left in the sink yesterday before my life rerouted in a hospital hallway and put it back in the cabinet with an extra gentle slide, the way people close doors in nurseries. At 5:12, my phone vibrated. A text from Ashley. It was a photo of a blank page and a pen laid across it, and underneath, "Last chance to pick the easy way. Sign or I escalate." The contempt in those periods did something cruel to the part of me that still hopes we can both be new, like mourning. I typed and erased. Typed and erased. Then I wrote, "I choose the way that is mine. If you escalate, I will not chase you. I will meet you through people who are paid to sit between harm and a woman. Bring my binder by Friday or I'll report it stolen." 3 dots bobbed and disappeared. It went on like that for a minute and then nothing. The silence was not peace, but it was mine. At 6:03, Meredith emailed, all sober font and boiled courtesy. "Ms. Collins, per your request, Keller and Stowe will cease all activity regarding 14 Crestview Lane. We apologize for any distress. Please find attached a confirmation that your property has been removed from our internal pipeline. Please note your daughter expressed to us that she was acting with your consent. We will make no further contact." The underlying sarcasm was a napkin laid over something spoiled. I filed it in Patrice's hungry folder. As night came and the neighborhood did the small things it does to suggest the world is mostly fine, someone grilling, a kid on a scooter, a dog insisting the corner is his, I stood in my hallway and looked at the pencil marks. There they were. Ashley, at 6, at 8, at 12, at 17, my writing neat and precise because that's how I kept evidence when I was the only courtroom that mattered. Next to hers, Mia's careful print from last summer, 4-4, with a heart dotting the I in Mia. Tyler's taller than me already. I put my hand on those marks like a blessing. I wrote my own, next to them, small because the point wasn't height. I wrote, "Today I stayed." At 9:10, the Ring camera caught a shadow near my porch. Gloria's text came in before I could stand. "Don't panic, it's me. Left a lawn sign, no solicitors. Also left a ceramic frog because your porch looked like it needed a mascot." In bed that night, my hip a dull reminder that bodies are honest even when people aren't. I held the new keys in my hand for a minute and listened to the sounds of a house that knows your breath. I opened my phone once, looked at a photo from 5 summers ago of Ashley and me at the farmer's market, laughing with strawberries between us like evidence that sweetness can be abundance and not a trap. I felt the complicated ache that comes from wanting yesterday to babysit today and knowing it can't. When sleep found me this time, it didn't bring the memory of a child running toward me. It brought a scene from earlier I hadn't let myself fully inhabit while it was happening. Me saying no and the world not ending. Me saying no and the world making space. Me saying no and feeling my father's flag at my back. Not heavy at all, but buoyant, as if dignity were helium, and finally, I had tied it to my wrist. In the morning, there would be more. More emails from Patrice to file with the county recorder. A conversation with Tyler about what the word boundaries means in a way that doesn't make him feel like love is offense. A meeting with Anita to talk about safety plans that look like doorbells with cameras and a neighbor network, and a list on the fridge of people you can call at 3 a.m. There would be a repairman to look at the dip in the back steps. There would be a letter to Maple Glen that said, "Not yet," and also, "Maybe never," because planning is not a sin when it's owned by the person whose life is being planned. There would be, too, a video on somebody's phone, a compilation maybe, of a nurse standing her ground in an ER doorway and a daughter leaving while a camera blinked red, and a mother in a living room saying no with a cane planted and a flag held in place that would travel farther than our block. People would send me messages from everywhere. I saw myself. I saw my mother. I saw my daughter. The chorus would be messy and not always kind, but it would make something happen that we all knew existed, but preferred to whisper about before. The way love gets lost when it's dressed as control. But that night, the last thing that happened was simple. I wrote a note on an index card and taped it inside my new green binder, the one Gloria found in her closet and brought over with tabs she had labeled while the sandwiches were being made. I am Margaret Collins. I live here because I choose to. If I forget that later, if my voice shakes or I get tired or someone tries to move me like a couch, remind me. I said no, and the world kept going. The world got better. The house stayed. The love didn't shrink to fit. I put the binder on the hall shelf where the dust would make a new outline around it, and I turned off the light. The dark in my house is kind. It knows me. It said, "See you in the morning." I said, "You will." And I slept without dreaming of anyone walking away. I dreamed, embarrassingly and perfectly, of keys. I dreamed embarrassingly and perfectly of keys. When I woke the next morning, the sunlight on the hallway felt like an ally. It found the pencil marks on the doorframe and lingered like a witness. The new green binder sat on the hall shelf where Gloria had put it. The dust made a clean rectangle around it as if the house itself had been waiting for a truth to rest there. I ran my thumb over the taped index card inside the front pocket until I could feel the fibers like fingers. Patrice had given me a list the night before of the paperwork we needed. She'd called it a toolkit. I called it armor. At 9, Chris came back to install a deadbolt on the side door and a security chain high where I could reach it standing. He posted the locksmith's receipt and the card for his buddy who does cameras on the fridge because, as he said, not every locksmith wants a cameo in a family drama. Tony hung the county sheriff's sticker on the inside of the doorframe at my request, something small and official that says, "Do not proceed." At 10, I met Patrice in the cramped office above an eyebrow salon that smelled faintly of lavender and the kind of resolve that comes from too many clients who need wills and too few people who have yet to write them. Patrice folded her hands like she was holding the kind of patience that builds cases. "We're going to do 3 things today," she said, passing me a stack of paper that, when you look at it, does the work of 1,000 kind strangers. 1. A demand letter to Meredith and Keller and Stowe to cease and desist all activity, and to provide proof that your property will not be listed. 2. File a notice of Ellis Pendens on 14 Crestview Lane to create a public record that there's a pending legal action involving the property, which prevents any legitimate sale until the litigation is resolved. And 3. We'll file for a temporary restraining order and emergency protective order based on attempted financial exploitation and coercion. We'll attach all the evidence: emails, voicemail, the DocuSign attempt, Meredith's thread, the notary's availability, and witness statements from Dara, June, Tony, Gloria, and Chris. APS's intake will strengthen our claim that there's a pattern of behavior. We'll ask the court to order the immediate return of any documents removed from your home, including the important papers binder, and to forbid Ashley from contacting you or entering your property pending a hearing. She looked at me when she said it, and for the first time since the hospital, I felt the hum of law settle around me like a blanket. It was not comfort in a pastoral sense, but it was protection. Rules with teeth. We'll also ask for sanctions if the court finds that the realtor and your daughter conspired to bypass your rights, Patrice added. This isn't theatrical, it's procedure. We gathered the evidence. Dara wrote a concise witness statement, clinical and exact, noting how the discharge plans were misreported and how she corrected the chart, and how the email and the voicemail made it clear there was an attempt to circumvent your agency. June provided medical notes on my condition, and a note that Dr. Valencia had declined to sign anything that would remove my decision-making capacity. Tony submitted the security report that the hospital had taken. He added an affidavit that he had been present when the voicemail was played and would testify as to what he saw. Anita from APS provided a letter confirming that a case had been opened and that her team considered the situation possible financial exploitation. Gloria wrote a long, beautiful paragraph about the binder, about how she found it missing, and about the sticky realtor card that felt like a breadcrumb trail. Chris signed a short statement about the locks and the staged items in my home. We printed the transcripts of the email chain and included a QR-coded copy of the realtor's DocuSign that had landed in my inbox at 9:30 p.m. the night before. We burned copies to a USB drive because, to Patrice's mind, physical things still have power. "Call Amelia," Patrice said, handing me a card. "She's a paralegal at the county courthouse and can give us a time slot for emergency relief. We'll file early. Judges like to resolve these before lunch if they can. It's a simple calculus. If we show probable cause that you're being coerced and that there's an imminent risk of financial loss to you, the court will act. We're going to ask for a hearing today." My fingers shook when I signed the retainer. Not because I wasn't sure, because I was, but because the weight of making a person see the law as your ally felt like stepping into water cold enough to be honest. Patrice folded the receipt into the folder and smiled. "You did the brave part last night when you said no," she said. "This is the practical part." Gloria drove me to her house. "You'll be safer here for the afternoon," she said. "Let them stew a little, and I'll bring chicken." She had a way of making arrangements that felt like prayer. I packed a sweater and my cane like a passport. As we drove, my phone buzzed the small, angry hum of someone who didn't understand boundaries. Ashley texted, "This is ridiculous. We'll go to court if we must. You're making this harder on yourself." I let the message sit green and unread. Patrice had instructed me to make no direct contact except through counsel. That was discipline and mercy at once. At Gloria's, we set my binder on the counter like a talisman. We ate chicken sandwiches at the kitchen table and watched the sunlight pull at the hydrangea leaves outside as if checking the weather for a fight. Gloria smoothed a dish towel over the table like she could iron out time, then laughed aloud at something on the radio so I'd know how to breathe. Meanwhile, Ashley did what angry people do when they feel out of control. She sped up. At noon, she filed a petition for emergency guardianship in the county probate court. The filing smelled like a hammer, quick, heavy, and designed to land. She attached a physician's note she claimed was from Dr. Valencia, and a statement from Meredith that claimed there was an urgent safety risk. Meredith's email to the thread, which had, until she wrote to all of us, been addressed to Ashley and a handful of colleagues, was presented as evidence that I'd consented. Ashley's petition was a straight line. Mother in hospital, needs supervision, daughter acting in best interest, petition for temporary guardianship pending a capacity evaluation. Patrice called me at Gloria's with a calm that sounded like a practice storm. "They filed," she said. "That means the judge will schedule an emergency hearing, very likely today. The question is, do they have the evidence to support incapacity? We have the best grounds we've seen. The email chain showing coercion, the voicemail admissions, APS involvement, the notations from hospital staff, and witnesses who can testify to your capacity and the coercive tactics. We need to file an opposition and request a hearing on their petition and file our own motion for protective order to prevent removal of any documents and to require immediate return of your binder. We'll also file the lis pendens and the cease and desist. I'll be there at 1. Get some rest. If the judge sets an ex parte hearing based on their filing, we will ask the judge to deny the emergency guardianship because the evidence suggests coercion rather than incapacity." At 1, Patrice and I sat in the courtroom, a simple room with too many chairs and the smell of other people's big problems. Ashley sat a row over, immaculate and severe, Meredith at her shoulder like a small emblem of the market. Evan sat behind them, looking small as the apology he hadn't yet learned to deliver. Meredith fidgeted with a stack of brochures like someone whose profession is turning houses into products. The judge was a woman whose hair had the kind of gray that announced professional experience and private grief in equal measure. She asked the clerk to summarize the filings. The clerk read in the petition, "Emergency guardianship requested due to risk of harm and diminished capacity." The clerk read our opposition. Plaintiff denies diminished capacity. Evidence suggests coercive and fraudulent actions directed at property transfer. Appellant requests immediate protective order and Elise pendens. Patrice stood and spoke with a confidence that was exacting. She walked through the email chain, Meredith's DocuSign, Ashley's text planning a lockbox and cleaner, Meredith's reply, the voicemail where Ashley said she would pursue guardianship if I resisted. She handed the judge my phone with the voicemail cued. The judge listened to Ashley's clipped, businesslike voice, then to the email that had been sent to a group of professionals with my name CC'd but not consenting, then to the screen on which the OS of my inbox still glowed like evidence. When the court looks at an emergency guardianship, Patrice said, we ask whether there is likely incapacity and imminent danger without intervention. What we have here is a plan to transfer property by the daughter and a realtor without the mother's consent. The hospital has corrected the chart to reflect that Ms. Collins is competent and declined placement. APS has opened an investigation into potential elder financial exploitation. The defendant's own messages show a plan predicated on logistical benefit to the daughter, not the medical conclusions of clinicians. We ask the court to deny the emergency guardianship petition and to issue a temporary restraining order preventing any transfer of assets, immediate return of any documents or binder removed from Ms. Collins's residence, and to issue a lis pendens on the property. The judge peered over her glasses. Do you have any evidence that Ms. Collins is capable of understanding these decisions? She asked politely. June rose like a woman who had carried other people's crises in nursing pockets for years and had more than one uniform in her closet. She described that I had been alert, consistent, definite in my choices, and that Dr. Valencia had explicitly refused to sign anything removing my capacity. Dara corroborated the correction in the chart. Tony attested to what he had witnessed in the ER. Gloria provided a detailed account of the missing binder and the realtor card. Chris described the staged items. Anita from APS confirmed the status of their investigation. The judge listened and then asked Ashley a few questions. About the basis for her claims, about why she believed guardianship was necessary now, and about the DocuSign that was sent. Ashley's answers were precise, but somehow thin. She fell, she said. She was disoriented. The house is unsafe. I'm trying to act in her best interest. Patrice stepped forward and said simply, there is no emergency here that justifies a guardianship ex parte. We do not mean to diminish the daughter's concern, but concern is not a substitute for capacity evaluations. We are prepared to have a full hearing. The court should also consider that the removal of documents and the attempted preemptive sale of property are signs of attempted financial exploitation, and the court has authority to protect Ms. Collins from immediate financial harm. The judge made the kind of small noise that is a jury of one. She tapped a pen against the bench. Given the record, she said finally, I will deny emergency guardianship at this time. I will set a hearing on the guardianship petition for 3 weeks from today. I will grant, however, a temporary protective order prohibiting any sale, transfer, or encumbrance of 14 Crestview Lane. I will order the immediate return of any documents removed from Ms. Collins' home within 48 hours. I will issue a lis pendens to be filed today. And I will order that Ashley Collins have no contact with Margaret Collins pending further order of the court. If any party violates this order, sanctions will issue. She folded her hands. The gavels in my head stopped rattling. When the clerk rattled the paperwork, it felt less like the sound of exile and more like the clink of turning a key. The judge signed. The temporary restraining order, small, authoritative, was slid across the bench. I signed where they asked. The binder in my heart tightened its elastic band. Out in the hallway, reporters I hadn't invited asked questions their professions required. I waved them off like a woman who has spent enough of a life listening to other people's takes. The courthouse plaza tasted like winter even though it wasn't yet fall. Meredith left without offering an apology. Ashley's face, usually a controlled thing, crumpled like paper under heat. Evan hovered near the curb like an island. When I returned to my house that afternoon, the mail had a certified letter from Patrice. The lis pendens was recorded with the county recorder's office. The cease and desist had landed in Meredith's office, and the sheriff had delivered a notice to any locksmiths that any prior agreement to unlock or alter the locks had no effect while the court's order stood. There was also, taped to my front door like a triumphant little flag, a small laminated copy of the temporary restraining order. Official, simple, concrete. Ashley texted, the nonsense little buzz of a life in a hurry. Stay calm. We can mediate. This will only get nastier. I opened it and read, you're making this personal. You're making it about me. She fell. She needs help. I typed back nothing. Evan called later that day. His voice was an awkward room with a chair missing. "Marge, he began. "You can say it if you want," I said. "I'm sorry," he said finally, and it wasn't the litany of excuses but the thing that had been missing. "I didn't want this to get ugly. I'm sorry I didn't stand up sooner. I was scared, and I let her scare me into choosing convenience over listening. I forgive you for being human," I said, which isn't the same as absolution. "Just be better next time." He promised to be. I believed him more than once. Ashley called that night, and I let it go to voicemail. Her message had the same music in it as the earlier ones. Hurry, duty, numbers. "Mom," she said, "I'm sorry you feel attacked. I'm trying to fix things. When this is over, we can talk about compromise. You can't keep being stubborn forever." When I played it for Patrice the next morning, she clicked her pen. "We'll add that to the file," she said. "It shows intent." For the next week, my life rearranged to the tempo of legal deadlines. Patrice filed a criminal referral for attempted financial exploitation with the county prosecutor because the evidence suggested intent to wrongfully deprive. Anita from APS checked in with weekly updates and promised to secure a formal investigation into the realtor's conduct. A complaint to the State Real Estate Commission would likely lead to disciplinary proceedings against any agent proven to have knowingly participated in a scheme like this. Meredith sent an email trying to wash her hands, claiming she had only acted on instructions and that any suggestion of wrongdoing made her very concerned. The judge's temporary order had the gravity of a promise. Anyone attempting to make contact, to sell, or to encumber the property could find themselves answering to the court. Ashley, for her part, oscillated. At times, she sent long disquisitions about how much she had been doing and how much responsibility she had shouldered, how she was tired, how she had to think of her kids, how the house was a hazard. At other times, she seemed small and angry, alternating sentences of accusation with requests for my signature. She tried once to cajole me through Evan. "We don't want to be adversarial," she told him. "We just need to protect assets." Evan's response was, "You're not protecting them if you do it by taking them." The trial, bearing the thing of all things, was not a show. It was paperwork and witness lists and a judge who wanted to know why people thought they could treat other people's lives like spreadsheets. Our hearing on the guardianship petition was 3 weeks out. In the meantime, the Ellis Pendens blocked any sale. The county prosecutor's office placed the file on a calendar for an intake meeting. APS's investigator interviewed neighbors and corroborated timelines. Meredith was quiet, which is what happens when you discover public records are more stubborn than your schedule. When the day of the hearing arrived, the courtroom felt different. Less like a stage and more like a place where real people with real smallnesses and real dignity could make things right. Patrice walked through our presentation with the precision of someone who carries many lives on a clipboard and does not let them tilt. She showed the voicemail, played the email thread, presented notarized statements from hospital staff, and asked June to describe my capacity in medical terms. Dara summarized the correction in the chart. Anita testified that APS had found the pattern consistent with exploitation, not incapacity. The judge listened like someone who wanted to be fair. Ashley's attorney tried to frame the daughter's urgency as benevolence, an exhausted child doing the math of care. But when asked why paperwork had been signed or why a realtor had been involved before my consent, the answers frayed. Meredith's office sent a civility note. The notary testified that no valid signed consent had been documented in her presence. The court took a long look at the DocuSign and at the email with my name CC'd and concluded that the daughter had acted prematurely, at best, and coercively, at worst. The judge did something that stuck to my bones like honey. She issued a permanent protective order forbidding any transfer of property without my express, notarized consent, and ordered that any attempt to exert financial control over me would be reviewed by the court for sanctions. She ordered the return of the important papers binder within 24 hours and required Ashley to attend a court-ordered mediation to resolve family boundaries and to receive information about community supports, rather than resorting to legal levers that remove autonomy. She did not strip Ashley of her relationship with me. Rather, she placed limits that protected my rights. When the bailiff handed me the signed order, the paper felt more than paper. It was a declaration, public, legal, that my life's work could not be hauled to market like a plate at a yard sale without my say. The judge admonished all parties that the family dynamic needed repair and that the law is not a substitute for love. News of the hearing seeped out. Not the salacious parts, but the essentials. Neighbors who had whispered called to check on me. Old Sunday school members brought over soup. Someone I only knew from the PTA dropped off a basket of folded washcloths. My email filled with messages from strangers who had seen a clip posted somewhere. A nurse standing her ground in an ER doorway. A daughter leaving a house with a realtor's card in her hair. The chorus was messy and kind in equal measure. People messaged that they'd been in the same place, or that their aunt had been, or that their neighbor had been haggled into giving away more than she had. Ashley came by the next afternoon with a cluster of paper and a hand that shook. She stood on the porch and, for the first time in the long history of our fights, looked smaller because she had less theater to hide behind. Evan stayed in the car. "I'm sorry," she said, the words simple and blunt. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought if I moved quickly, it would be easier for you." Her voice had the rawness of someone who had been told a truth she hadn't asked for and had no map to navigate it. "I'm sorry, Mom. I thought I'd be thanked." There was a long silence between us that tasted like every Christmas and every scraped knee. "You thought kindness meant fixing my life," I said. "You were trying to make my life into something you could file under solved." "That was wrong. Love is not an item you check off." She swallowed. "I know." "Return my binder," I said. She slid it across the threshold like a peace offering. It had my handwriting inside and a note she had left that read, "Would be easier if you..." But that was small. The binder returning felt like the moment a tide goes back and leaves the shore where it belongs. There were no handcuffs, no triumph parade, only the relief of a loose thing being returned to its place. She stood there with a kind of private grief. Evan came up then, eyes wet, and when he gave me a small, honest apology for not stepping in, I felt no rage then, only the quiet satisfaction of a thing made right. We did not fix everything that day. There was mediation on the calendar. Ashley would need to attend a class on elder rights and consent and come up with a plan for caregiving that included options beyond move and sell. She would need to learn that urgency doesn't trump autonomy. There were conversations to be had with Tyler and Mia, whose kids' faces in the family photos had been used like props in a debate. But the most important shift had happened. The law recognized my right to choose. After they left, Gloria and I stood on the porch and planted a new hydrangea where the thirsty one had been. A small act that felt like a benediction. I tucked the ledger with the deed and the binder under a lockbox in my bedroom closet. Patrice's advice, simple and practical, and wrote on the first page, in a hand that did not tremble, "Today, I stayed. I remain." That night, with a cup of coffee that I asked June to rehearse for the perfect temperature, I took the flag down from the mantel. John's flag had always belonged to him and to his memory, but I had wrapped it in a way that allowed it to be carried forward rather than folded away. I smoothed it and refolded it myself, the motions like prayer and memory braided together. Folding it was not an act of mourning, but of stewardship. I was saying aloud that things worth keeping deserve keeping. Then I placed it in a cedar box and set the box on the bookshelf near my new binder. They were companions. Memory and agency. There was a katydid night outside my window, the sound of small things keeping the dark company. I sat at my kitchen table, the nick visible like an honest scar, and wrote a letter to Tyler and Mia. I told them about the courthouse, about the people who stood with me, about how sometimes children believe they are rescuers when they become bulldozers. I told them that I loved them in a way that would not suffocate. I told them I trusted them to be kind to their mother and to their grandmother. I asked them to come by the following Sunday for cinnamon rolls, glazed, not dry, because the world can be repaired in small kitchens over small foods. The catharsis came quietly one Saturday afternoon when I invited June, Gloria, Tony, Chris, Patrice, and Anita for coffee and the kind of pie that is never as dramatic as the smile afterwards. We set the table with the flagged cedar box near the center like a royal object, and for a while none of us spoke because the quiet was thick in a good way. I told them thank you in a way that felt like a benediction. "You stood," I said. "You watched. You acted." They all smiled and the room felt for the first time in weeks ordinary. In the weeks that followed, the county prosecutor declined to pursue criminal charges, citing lack of clear felony intent, but the court partnered with APS to put a mandatory education class in the docket for any familial guardianship petition. The realtor faced a complaint with the state. Keller and Stowe issued a formal statement that they would institute new training for agents about the rights of vulnerable adults. It was not a grand downfall, but it was consequence. The judge's order stood as a line in the sand. Ashley and I didn't snap into some cinematic reconciliation. We moved instead into the harder terrain of small honesty. We mediated with a professional who helped us unpack what helping meant. Ashley agreed to certain boundaries. No surprise property maneuvers, no unilateral decisions about my finances, mandatory involvement of a neutral third party if she felt things were deteriorating. I agreed to a phone call once a week rather than intermittent crisis texts, and to let her know if I needed help. Not because I didn't need it before, but because I needed to teach how to ask rightly. Evan called more often. He and I repaired things with small acts. A dinner where he listened and did not explain. Him showing up to fix my back steps properly the following spring with a can-do demeanor and less of the apology in his voice. Tyler and Mia came over for those cinnamon rolls and brought a collage of macaroni hearts they'd made with crayons. They asked questions about the law as if it were an adventure. And me? I put my binder on the shelf and wrote a new note inside the front cover. In case of doubt, read this page. Margaret Collins, owner by right. Do not move me like furniture. The house stayed. The love didn't shrink to fit. 2 months later, the case reached the county legal aid clinic that funds classes and trainings for families. Patrice was invited to speak about practical steps people can take to protect aging parents' rights. I went with her and told a short version of the story. When the microphone came my way, I said what I had been thinking since the first night in the ER. Love is a lot of things, but power over a person is not one of them. On the drive home, Gloria asked, "Do you regret it?" "Regret?" I said, thinking of the flag and the binder and the way the house had sighed at the night it could stay. "No. I regret nothing that keeps my dignity. There are days I still feel the sting of how easy it is for someone to see the parts of you they think they can fix and decide to fix them. There are days when the messages come again, carefully polite, full of asterisks, and I delete them. There are also days when a neighbor brings over a pie they baked because they saw a wreath in my window and thought I might need a friend. The world is messy in the way human lives are messy, and that is also why it matters. If this story touched you, if it echoed something you've seen in your own life, tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to put a boundary between a family member and their help? Where do you draw the line between care and control? If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things to protect what's theirs. Share this with someone who needs to see that dignity has allies, both friends and laws, and that asking for help is not the same as giving up. And if you're facing something like this, reach out to local adult protective services, a legal aid clinic, or someone in your community who can stand with you. You don't have to be alone.